Good morning, guys. Hi.
Morning, everybody.
Morning.
All right. So I'm gonna get straight into it because people usually think 6 minutes is a long time, but I think with Father's Day coming, I want to start with Kerron. Kerron, how many kids do you have, and do you expect macaroni art on Father's Day?
Morning once again, everybody. Yes, I do expect macaroni art on Father's Day, and I have four beautiful children, two boys and two girls. By the way.
Wow. Wow. So you are just on that side. You are a busy bee. I don't know where you find the time, man. Godspeed with that. Guys, I am the only non-parent in this call, so I have no expertise or no contribution in this area. I have a cat, and that apparently does not consider to be parenthood. I asked tax people, and it's not. Okay, so Jason, give us your insight into fatherhood. How many kids do you have?
I just want a son. It's going to be 18 in 4 days. Yeah, a big boy now.
Wow. Wow. When did you have this 18-year-old? You were really young.
Yeah. Me and Sunny started actually. Sunny's firstborn is around. We actually became dads around the same time, same year, a couple months apart. So yeah, we started pretty young, 2006, and yeah, it's been a great journey so far. For myself and Sunny, and I'm sure our next guest on the call with us.
Wow. Okay, cool. Well, I mean, y'all looking really good for this fatherhood. We're going to bring in Mark and find out how many kids he has. Oh, wait. Sorry. We have you on mute. Try that again.
I said big respect to Jason and Karen. I started a little later. I have two beautiful kids, an 8-year-old and a 5-year-old, a son and a daughter, and that is it. And we've ended it there. And yes, I'm expecting maybe not macaroni, maybe a card or two. And I don't expect anything, so I won't be disappointed.
Right. So before we went live, Mark shared some stuff, and if his wife is watching this on the replay, we have rooting for you for maybe another addition for your kids. Just add to my pension, guys. I need this. It's not about you. All right. So let's get into fatherhood and the financial status of it, because at the end of the day, if we're going to be frank, dads have this huge responsibility that we've kind of adopted over the generations. And I think that we have such a robust panel in the conversation around entertainment, as well as Mark being in the financial space. We have two different sides to look at this. So when it comes to providing financially for your children, why is it more than just putting food on the table? So I want to start with Karen in this conversation.
Why is it more important than just putting food on the table? Um, as I said before, so I have four children, and as you can see by my little grades, and I'm actually maybe the youngest dad in this whole thing, but I think because I have the most children, I think my grades are understandable. So basically, I would say that it's very important, especially as an entertainer, because tomorrow isn't promised. We are more or less independent contractors in the entertainment space. So you cannot sit and dictate that, hey, when I finish work tomorrow, I take my days off, that the pension or whatever is there waiting on me at the very end of an independent contractor in entertainment. To me, I know how important it is to prepare for tomorrow. And being a parent means I'm no longer preparing for myself for tomorrow, but I'm preparing for my children as well. So just like Jason, my eldest is already in tertiary level education. It means a different level of finances, and I have three more coming up after that. So I am not just looking at the one in front of me. I know I have to be preparing for at least the next 15 years in terms of education. So it's more than just feeding a child; it's preparing them for the wider world and making sure that you have all steps in place to support them along the way. As much as you want to be a parent, you have to make up your mind that this is what is involved. It takes preparation.
And as I said before, I have no reference point for that. I kudos to everybody on this call. So in the conversation around entertainment, I want to extend it a bit to JW as it relates to time, because when you are working an 8 to 4, it's more structured. There's more understanding that I'm going to the office, I'm coming back home. But as a father in the entertainment industry, can you kind of correlate between time and having financial stability? in the entertainment space?
Yeah, balance is very important. A matter of fact, myself and Sunny, we hosted a sports day last week, and I think Sunny, if you recall, we were actually talking about that in terms of taking time not only for family engagements, but also to rest the body, to rest the mind, because we are as good as our last performance, and you don't want to go out there and have a string of subpar performances, subpar appearances. You're going out there tired, beat out, looking haggard. It could impact the bottom line. So it's important to strike that balance, find time to rest, find time to spend with family, because as much as preparing financially and giving them a proper foundation is of paramount importance, it's also important to spend time, which to me is the ultimate currency. Yes, you can leave them with a nice nest egg, but if all they do is work, 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 and just leave them with that, where is the relationship between yourself and child? So delicate balance is needed, and sometimes we need to know when to step back. Not every food is to eat, and not every dollar is to run down. Sometimes you have to pull yourself back and just recoup to go again. Long game, long game.
That's such an important factor because a lot of us associate, upbringing for kids and making sure that they have the roof over their heads and food on the table, but time spent is so important. And in that same breath, I want to ask Mark about the idea of financial security because spending time with your kids is extremely important, but we also need to make sure that they are not just prepped for today, but when they decide to go to college, what does that look like? So in the sphere of, being a father, how does financial security contribute to your children's overall well-being?
So definitely something I think as a father, I think it's ingrained in our DNA that we want to be a good father, a good uncle, and more importantly, we want to be a good provider. And financial security is part of that, but not just financial security for yourself and their kids, but also to create that mindset and to cultivate a healthy relationship about finances and budgeting for your kids in the future. A lot of you just had the comment, we want to give our kids what we did not have. But at the same time, you want to give them the things you did have. You want to make them understand the value of a dollar, savings, having a short-term investment, just spending all your money wildly. We live in an age of social media and instant gratification, and everybody wants to be, an influencer. That seems to be a popular profession, but you also have to teach them and build within yourself that financial security, making sure you have money for a rainy day. I mean, I worry about what is going to happen in the future. Do I have enough savings for my kids' education? I already told my daughter, hey, you have to get a scholarship, all right? And the increased cost of living. So it's really about fostering that healthy relationship with them, get them involved in conversations, let them see how you react to not just the positive with regards to finances, but also how you deal with stresses in finances so that, they can see you can overcome it. And there's a plan to build that financial security across the generations.
So I would add to the scholarship. I have at least 5 or 6 friends who went on full scholarships for hockey in New York. So I would suggest sports. Just gonna put that out there. It's just definitely the way forward, guys. That's the only advice I have as Auntie Pauline. All right, okay. So when it comes to the money management side of things, we had mothers on here a few weeks ago, and they were speaking about using apps and managing, teaching their kids with allowance. I would love to hear your insight into when did you start that conversation. I want to start with Kerron around money, and what did that look like?
I would have started that conversation a little later, to be quite honest, because I wanted my children to really focus on just being in school and learning as best as you can, absorbing as much as you can. And don't study money, study education, and we'll get to that part later on. So as we speak right now, actually, my eldest, who doesn't have any class today, is with me in office today, and she's actually doing some level of work because she's recently started in some sort to work alongside me. Just again, just gaining experience and seeing what I do and see how maybe you can fall into your own life and understanding what employers look for and you know what I mean. So basically, I do the whole allowance thing now more so from maybe like Form 4, Form 5. You would have always got money, yeah. But I meant like in a real allowance form, from like Form 4, Form 5, come up the road here now. Now that you're into 3 level, of course, you're in a different space, so you need to get that money. So I provide that at the end of every month. And I remember the one time I provided the money like about a week before. You know, sometimes I might get paid like on the 20th. So instead of waiting at the end of the very month, like you put the money like around the 20th, and she's like, but it's not the end of the month yet, and what I want to do the money so early. I said, no, well, you need to understand this is how life goes and you need to manage it because sometimes you may be working at a job and you might get paid early. I say if you get paid early, you still have to hold on to that money until the end of the very next month. So you have to make it work for you. So I'm not handing you this money when it's convenient to you. I hand it when it came in, and at the end of the month, it just happened to be early, which is a plus in some cases. So we actually now going through those discussions about managing money, budgeting, which I am very traditional on, meaning I am one of those who will sit down and write on paper every single day. As much as we type on computers and whatnot, I actually go to a piece of paper almost every single day, every 2, 3 days. I think very much about my life and where I'm going. I am not perfect at all. I don't have all the answers. And because of that is why I make sure to take notes. And with so doing, when I learn more, I can pass on more as well.
Wow. So I think your daughter just learned a very valuable lesson. You know, that time where January is the longest month ever in the year. I think that's the lesson she learned. Love that for her. And I would also say I spend a lot of my time professionally online, and I really value being able to write on a piece of paper, which I am currently doing now. So I can definitely agree to the value of that. So with JW, you know, you said that your son is 18. So in this conversation, we're looking at careers, like what is he interested in? How do you incorporate money in that conversation?
Well, my style was a bit different, well, far removed from the norm. So very early with my son, we would have had conversations and I would have given him certain responsibilities. So I put a phone in his hand when he was at the tender age of probably 6 or 7. Me too. Wasn't anything fancy, no smartphone. And I saw from a very early age his sense of responsibility with his belongings. He kept it in pristine condition. Never scratched the phone, never fall down, how he kept his uniform, how he would keep his lunch kit, his book bags, his books. So I started to give him more and more response. Well, more and more, wasn't so much physical money, but certain things, a phone, a keyboard, which funny enough, he's into music now. So I recognized from an early age, he saw my work ethic, saw the long hours I'd have to go. And I guess he did not want to, he got a sense of not wanting to squander or not wanting to have to put me through repairing stuff or having to replace it because he would have damaged it. I've seen also where as he got older, gave him even a greater responsibility and access. So he has all my credit card information. He will buy certain apps, stuff for his games online. He'll always take my permission first. He will verify with me that I want to get XYZ online. I'll see what's it cost. Once it costs is within reason, I'll say go right ahead. He knows my bank PIN number. So I will let him pay for stuff when we go out. So I teach him that sense of knowing how to maneuver with these new forms of payment, with the cards. I'll do my budget stuff. I'll do budgets also, and he will be there when I'm working on my budget. And I think he looks at my example in terms of buying the things we need as opposed to the things we want. Every now and then, of course, you'll like yourself. I'll make sure he partakes in, but generally, it's been a very stringent, very systematic kind of approach, and I've kind of brought him into the fold very young. And I saw his sense of responsibility. I'll go back to that phone story because I was taken aback as to how pristine he came phone from the age of 7 to 10 when I moved him up to more the smartphone era. And from then to now, I've never had to really replace or seek warranty on any items I would have given to my son. And now he's going to transition into music. We've had that conversation. It's not that expensive, thank God. The courses in Trinidad are still within reason. But if he has to expanding it overseas, that would be a different conversation. And I guess he'll have to, through work, chip in. I've let him. He's known that from a long time that things come. What you put in is what you get out of a scenario, and there will be that time you'll have to bring something also to the table. So we're having that kind of conversation now. But to summarize, I've brought him into the fold very early with giving him access to my cards and access to certain items that I've seen firsthand that he was able to manage well.
Thanks for that, JW. We're going to go on a quick break, but when we come back, we're going to discuss difficult conversations that many of us need to have internally with ourselves, because we do live in a consumerist world where we're seeing all these things that we need, but how do we have that difficult conversation with our kids? So we'll be right back. Welcome back to Straight Off the Bat, the show that helps you understand financial literacy and education. Thank you so much for joining us today. And if you're doing so from YouTube, don't forget to smash that subscribe button to continue seeing content that'll help you manage your money. Today, we're discussing fatherhood and finances and why it's providing financially important for fathers. So we're going to bring in our guests today. We're joined by JW, Sunny, and Mark. Quite array of guests today. They're all fathers, and if you missed their children count, their body count, am I allowed to say that? I don't know, but you can just, don't worry. Once this live is over, you can check it on the replay. So just to shout out Nicole, who is Mark's wife, she is watching and she thanks the support. And if you missed that conversation, that's okay. You will see it on the replay. So we are back to have this discussion around fatherhood and more specifically conversations with our children. And we are living in a world where it's instant gratification. I'm currently in a city where you go on Amazon and there's a quick pay button and the next day it shows up. It's really dangerous. And I can't imagine the conversation that needs to be had because, as JW mentioned earlier, giving his son a phone, and we are living in a world where it's part of our lives. It's easy to be like, let's get off social media, but at the end of the day, it's integrated in what it means to be a human today. So, Mark, I'm going to present to you the difficult conversation. What does that look like when your children are going to ask you for something that they may not necessarily need, or you're not going to give it to them? What does that look like?
Yeah, excellent question. I don't think my kids from very early had an appreciation of money and finances. My son, I remember he was playing his Robux. And he's like, Daddy, I need some Robux money. And I was like, well, Evan, I don't have any money for that. And he's like, well, use your card. I was like, what? Because, of course, he will see, we'll go to the grocery, we'll pick up everything, fill the cart, reach the counter, tap, and go. They're not understanding the budgeting aspect. So I haven't started with him yet. But my daughter, a little older, I wanted to teach her about managing money. So one, she started to get like $25 for a week. And that was her allowance. I would see what would she would do with it. And the first week, by Tuesday, I asked her, so how much do you have left? And she's like, by Tuesday, it's done. I was like, it's done? She's like, yeah, I bought a donut and I bought something for my cousin who also goes to the same school. And I was like, with Emmeline, you should start to have that conversation with her about saving. And I'm happy to announce up to this morning, because I knew I was coming on this session. I was like, so Emmeline, she has a piggy bank we got for her. And I was like, are you saving? And she's like, yeah, I have money in my piggy bank. She's like, yeah. I was like, so you can open that for Christmas? And she's like, no, I'm not opening that for Christmas. She already wants to continue and have that as long-term savings. And I think too, definitely the school she goes to, they also teach her not about, reading, writing, math, but they also teach her financial literacy. Last week she went to a field trip to Massey where they would get $50 and they had to go do shopping and they had to stay within budget. Now, rightfully so, she went a little over budget when she went to the counter. I'll blame Nicole for that. But nevertheless, she had to understand, hey, you have to put something back. This may not be what you want. This is what you need. And she put it back. She got a change. So you have to have that conversations with them, really foster that healthy relationship to managing their money. And it's not about quick and online and Roblox and Minecraft and Amazon. You really have to move towards savings as well.
Wow, this conversation is so foreign to me because I remember the first time I got I think it was $5 as a kid. I wanted to go get I want to get as much Bigfoot as possible because that's a very important snack for me. It still is right now. My stomach may not be able to handle it, but I want it. And it's interesting that kids nowadays are looking at things at Roblox, looking at this 3D world that they're living in. And sometimes I feel there's a disconnect. Even for me, who I am spending most of my professional life online. Some of these things that the kids are telling me, I'm like, what? My cousin's kids, they're like 9 and 13, and they have breakfast and then they have the Oculus, and I was like, what is happening? So as it relates to having those conversations, maybe we may not have had those conversations with our parents. So I want to ask this question to Kerron. How do you deal with certain things in terms of that generational difference? You may not have had this conversation with your parents, but you now have to have this with your kid. How do you learn and how do you navigate that discussion?
Well, I keep it as real as humanly possible. I really wasn't born with a gold spoon. And I grew up in a real home, we were not. Oh my God, my phone just got the hell up.
We're having a bit of a technical difficulties, and you see the question it probably trigger it. So let's just shift over to DW. It's gonna be back. So do you need me to repeat the question, or you remember it?
I remember it. I actually Sunny was definitely going down the direction and the angle I've taken. I've been, as again, what I said earlier, totally transparent. I mean, as I said, what I'm doing is probably very unorthodox and probably not the rule, the golden rule, but I've given my son full access. I've had very open conversations. And I think the more you give a child that freedom and that responsibility early, it seems to me that there is no interest to go overboard or to spend unnecessarily, because he would have been part and parcel, like shoulder to shoulder. I didn't have access to my mom finances growing up. She didn't have those kind of discussions with me. That was something where you wouldn't have that kind of discussion. The most she would have done, she allowed me to join, back then, credit union, and then transferred me into the banking system. But other than that, the kind of open and frank conversations I have with my son, in terms of me budgeting the certain trips we go on. When we go on trips, we will format what we're doing for the day, and we will stay within the rule. We will go to do some shopping. And interesting enough, he would always go for, like, let's say, he would go to the sale rack or head across to the items that on a bargain. So I've recognized that putting him into the conversation early, giving him access, he almost adopted my attitude and approach to finances, where we're being frugal, but at least, I mean, yes, you treat yourself. Don't get me wrong, because life is to live and you must treat yourself, but you do it in a systematic way and you do it within a timing when you could actually embrace it. And I've seen that approach compared to how I would have come through the years. I went a totally different direction, because I think that's all we could do as parents. And Mark, I don't know if you could relate to it, where our template would be from our parents. And there are things they would have done that was tremendous, and we'll keep it as the golden standard. But certain areas where we feel the ball would have been dropped, when we now become parents, we will do our own tweaking and editing and try to adjust it and treat with it in a way we would have envisioned them to treat with us. And that is something that I think is very relevant when we talk about finances and how we deal with finances with the children now, to set them on a path of success so that they could know how to spend, when to spend. Because I think that's a major problem. A lot of us in Trinidad experience bad spending. Bad spending. People spending on things they don't really need. And you find yourself in a total financial monkey pants. And we don't want to pass that bad habit on to the children. I think it's important to keep them in the loop. And again, I've been totally transparent, and it's worked for me so far.
Mark, you want to add to that?
It's a double-edged sword, because I agree with you. You may have seen I would have seen my parents make certain financial decisions, and that I may not have agreed with when I was younger. But at the same time, as you get older and you get into the real world and realize that you have to make some difficult decisions, you understand why. And I think the important thing is to learn from it. I got a lot of good advice from my parents growing up. They would always say, well, when you get paid, pay yourself first. Do something nice for yourself. And it doesn't mean to go and make an expensive, anything expensive. Buy yourself 2 doubles in the morning. Pay yourself first. You've worked hard. After that, put something towards savings. And then after that, you work through your bills. Put something for a rainy day. So I think you're right, Jason. There may be some things or conversations that our parents may not have had with us, or some decisions they may have made, but is really to learn from that and evolve and approach finances with our children slightly differently.
Yeah.
So when it comes to this conversation around pay yourself, and I've heard this many times, I need a little bit of an elaboration with that, because we tell ourselves these stories where I deserve this. We have hashtag self-care Sundays. We have, I work hard. And then we tend to make these decisions that may not necessarily be financially sound. So can you a little expand on that, Mark, when you say pay yourself first in the relation to what you may actually be paid?
Yeah, I wouldn't put a dollar value on it. And of course, life is about balance. But at the end of the day, we all work hard in whatever industry. And yeah, you have to really ask yourself what you're working for. Of course, I'm working towards, I want to make sure that, when I retire, I'm comfortable, that I can travel the world, that I'm not a burden on my family or on my kids. I want to make sure that my children's education is well taken care of. I came from a family of 4 boys, and my parents can afford to just send us off to college. They gave us our basic education. My dad always said that I'm going to give that to you, and what you do, that is up to you. Everybody worked and studied and was successful. But at some point, you also have to, what you're working for from a short term, you have to treat yourself. Whether you decide to budget and say that, I'm going to save towards a specific goal at the end of the year and give myself a trip, or whether or not it's something smaller that makes me happy. I want to go and get my nails done, or I want to go and get a massage, or I want to go and upgrade something for my car. But once it is you budget, and it doesn't impact the other aspects of your life or the necessities. And I'm not just talking about bills. I'm not just talking about the bills that come at the end of the month, but really putting towards that financial future. Fine, pay yourself, but do it within reason, do it within balance, because you have to treat yourself. You have to speak, you have to understand what your body is going through, what your mind is going through. And at the end of the day, you have to do something to make you happy, but all within reason.
Okay, you hear that, guys? So don't let a hashtag make the decision on your future and your children's future. So just be mindful of that. All right, we're gonna go on a quick break, and when we come back, we're gonna talk about advice to navigate financial challenges while raising a family. So we'll be right back. Welcome back to Straight Off the Bat, a show that helps you understand financial literacy and education. Thank you so much for joining us today. And if you're doing so from LinkedIn, don't forget to subscribe to our page to continue seeing content that'll help you manage your money. Today, we're discussing fatherhood and finances, and we're going to figure out this way of navigating having kids in this digital age. So, we're joined by Mark Cape. He is the manager digital business solutions at Free Citizens Bank, as well as Jason Williams, who does he even need an introduction? Come on, man, JW. So,
You know, you don't think I went to school, Mark? You know, Mark, we went to school together, and
Yes, we did. We went to Poly. We went to the
yes.
original Tin for Terra. Jason.
Oh, you mean? Oh, you
Is
mean? So me and Mark back here.
You did
Right proud of
recognize
you,
me.
Right proud of you, man. Right proud of you, man.
Yeah.
wow. Well, we just had a school reunion there, and that's great because we're going to tap into that childhood, guys, because we're going to talk about financial challenges because you guys kind of both, I guess, in the same trajectory in terms of, being able to finish school and follow your professional career and the things that you love, because I know both of you all are doing things that you love. So when it comes to, when you just started out and, following your professional career, some things aren't chosen for you. And you just kind of have to navigate that. So when it comes to having children, how is that in terms of being able to raise a family while navigating things that we don't necessarily allow for fathers to have a discussion about? So JW, you want to start?
In terms of, raising a family and going through certain challenges.
Yes, financial challenges. Like, who do you speak to? How were you able to go past that?
Well, interestingly, and I'm glad you raised it because everything was smooth sailing. So, Mark can tell you, we went to Poly, and what I'm doing now is no surprise to anybody in school because from school days, I was hosting stuff, always very much in the loop, outspoken. I mean, Mark could confirm that. So, I'm sure he's not surprised with the career path I went, right? And my last exam in Poly would have been a Tuesday. I was home the Wednesday, and on the Thursday, I started radio back in 1998. So I was literally home for one day. I decided to jump into the political arena in 2020 to contest the BATT sound. And no regrets about, something that I always wanted to do. It was part of my journey and growth process. And I've always put people in the country first. So when that call came, I said, you know what, let me pivot and dedicate the rest of my energy and time. That wasn't successful. And what happened now, I was home for 5 months for the first time in my life, Mark, and for the audience looking on. I was home and it was really a tough and challenging time. And it was COVID. So Sunny can tell you, it was a time where we couldn't climb on stage. We couldn't go host any events, sports days, everything was locked down. So I was literally living off of my savings. And again, being transparent, as I mentioned earlier on with my son, he would have been part of the campaign working with me as a little child. He would have been either 13 or 14 at the time. Yeah, 13, I think. And when I was going through really having to cut down and just deal with the mortgage, the internet, water, electricity, the essentials, we went back to the basics. And I think he was there with me in the struggle. So I think it's important that when you're going through the struggle, your child is able to see firsthand what's happening. You have to relate in real time. You can understand what's going on, that we have to hold back these things we're accustomed doing, eating out, the little trip that we would have enjoyed to, let's say, at Tobago or Grenada. We have to put that on the back burner for now. And you now have to find ways to keep the wheels turning. So I have to find different ways to hustle, literally doing dub plates here at home, soca plates for balance, having to do virtual performances, found different ways to kind of make the ends meet. And he was right there hand in hand. And I think it gives not only the person going through it a sense of new energy to get back on your feet, but a child who is getting a first-hand front row seat to that experience a parent is going through would make different decisions and thinking when they get older. I don't know, I'm a risk taker. Whether my son, not too sure, because he would have seen firsthand that, hey, that he was on a particular path, he went a different direction, and it didn't work out initially. I've been able to find back myself since, back to my career, and things are working out now. But that was the toughest and most challenging time, and that's something I think I wanted to share, where it was a tough moment, but being honest and sharing in real time with your children, or your child, in my case, what is happening, made the adjustment a little bit easier.
Wow, and it's interesting because during that time, some of us had the privilege of working remotely, but in the entertainment space, that's a whole different ball game.
Yeah.
Mark, I
So,
think you wanted, yeah, for sure, and we're gonna touch on that with Kerron in a bit. But Mark, you wanted to add to something there?
So, straight slightly off the topic, Jason, I just want to let you know that, well, I'm involved not just with my kids, but I've been involved in several mentorship programs throughout the years. And I've always used you actually as an example of, if you do what you love, you won't feel like you've worked a day in your life. Because I know you from school, and I know your passion, and this is what you wanted to do. And you made a career of it. So I always use you as an example, and I always use you as an inspiration. So for my kids, I mean, back in my day, it was about leaving school, getting a good bank work, having that level of stability. Maybe in this time, I may have been something else. I may have been a chef. You never know. But I want to give my kids that opportunity to do what they love. And that, of course, starts with financial awareness and stability, and building that foundation so that in the future, they can be like JW and do what they love. Just wanted to add that.
Wow.
thanks, Robin.
That's amazing. Karen, you would have missed it, but we had a bit of a school reunion here. JW and Mark both went to school together. So that's okay. We'll still bring in the mix here, Karen. So we are discussing challenges, and JW would have mentioned, during the lockdown, some of the things that he would have had to pivot. But I want to ask you, Karen, because we would have had this discussion off the air, but I want to bring on this idea of being in the entertainment industry and not necessarily understanding finances. And it's interesting because this was a comment left on one of our posts when they saw our guest today, and they're like, well, what do they know about financing? So Karen, just touch on what it means in the entertainment space, juggling that as well as being a father.
I think people could be real ignorant, meaning anybody can answer the question on finances. From the time you have to spend a dollar, you have to understand something about finances. So I really don't take anything to those comments really. But the reality for me is that from a financial standpoint, I understand now, like my daughter is going to be 18 years old. I'll go with a simple example, which is like insurance. I was never one to be all up on insurance, and I don't really know much about these things and whatnot, but I also know that my parents taught me growing up that you need to try and accomplish some simple goals as well as your major ones, right? So for instance, as a working man, try and be able to purchase a piece of land or see if you can get a house. Also make sure and invest in some level of insurance for your future, for yourselves and your children and these kind of things, right? Because they could also benefit in so many different ways along the way. So I was like, boy, insurance, but I really don't like this and whatever. Long story short, I took my very first insurance policy for my daughter when she was born, a few years after she was born, when some people came to work by us on the radio station, when they brought the insurance companies to speak with us and whatnot. And it's the same thing. I was like, boy, but I'm independent contractor, we on radio, we just here, we party and thing, what we need insurance for, but I just kept saying to myself, you know what? I'll do this because my parents told me this is something I should be doing. I didn't know much about it, but I just did it because I thought, you know what, parents say I should be doing these things, and I really honor my parents' work, so I just kind of jump into it and say I'll learn along the way. And when my daughter decided that she wanted to go to tertiary level education, is when I decided I did a little wrong, Robin, there was still at the insurance accounts, whatnot. And I decided, you know what, let me go and check out these accounts and see what's going on with some of these accounts. And I was kind of surprised to hear what was going on in some of these accounts. So much so that I knew that in the back of my mind, this was the safety net that my parents were telling me about many, many years before. So now that my daughter wants to go and do her tertiary level education, I could afford to say, you know what, I know I can get this money from, if it is, I cannot find it within myself. And just like Jason would have mentioned earlier on, we just came out of the pandemic and all of these different things where we went through the roughest period in our lives as entertainers and independent suppliers, that I realized having the same insurance that was not affected throughout the course of the pandemic that was the little safety net there. So even though I still finding myself back to where I want to be now, my children have not been affected because I personally prepared for them many years in advance without even understanding what I was doing. So I wasn't as financially smart then as I might have been smart. I might be smarter now, but being able to understand the importance of preparing for the future by just that simple insurance, and so much so, as Jason would say, the children and making their own decisions. My daughter is now telling me last week that she wants to go into some level of videography and maybe photography, and she really likes that. And I had the conversation where I could say, you know what, sweetheart, how about using the same account, the same insurance account that she knows about? I said, how about if we go into this account and take some of this money now, because it's your money, I might be saving it for you, but we're using this now as an investment. So you say you like camera work and whatnot. How about we buy a camera? How about we buy a laptop? How about we do an online course, or maybe go and sit somewhere and do a course second to what you're doing? So as much as you're into the trade and you're focusing on that one thing, you're focusing on two things. And you're also learning to invest in yourself. So you're not just saying, take daddy money or mommy money, which we don't have, and just do something because I feel to do it, but you're also understanding the shared responsibility of the investment you're making in yourself. But this is your money, as we say. So now we're taking your money to invest into you that maybe might make something better for you in the future. So this is kind of how I deal with the money at this point in time, and educating and passing it on.
Well, thank you so much for sharing with that. I think that's extremely important. And I can actually add that your daughter's interest will never go away, because as much as we talk about AI still needs content to make decisions. So the more content we make, the better it is. And that will always be in demand. So I say, go for it. It's definitely something worth exploring. So, Kerron would have mentioned something about insurance and opening accounts and things like that. What's her money set in insurance? So I want to have a perspective from Mark, being in the banking industry. When is the age to open that bank account? When should someone have that discussion? When should a dad be like, okay, let's go to the bank to open your account? What age that look like, and what options are available?
I will start by saying as early as possible. My kids probably have more accounts than me. They have a Citizens New account. They do have accounts with different financial institutions. In some cases, their grandparents and their great grandparents would have put them with a little bit, and we add to it over time. And it's important to do that as part of that financial literacy and understand your accounts and your savings. So I would say as early as possible, have those accounts, especially in Kerron made a fantastic point. Not just banking. Banking can be, in terms of accounts, can be slightly more short term. You would want to look, of course, at investing. You can actually invest in them in the stock market, First Citizen shares, other shares on the stock market for those long-term yields, or for when they want to study or whatever they want to do in life. And the insurance, I think, is excellent. I think everybody should have it. I have an excellent financial advisor, big up to Quincy Tyner from Guardian, who, of course, has guided me through the years to make sure that not just that my family would be financially secure in years to come, but God forbid, if anything were to happen to me, that they would be able to move on and not struggle, if I'm not here. So definitely different banking products. Do your research, see what's out there for you, get those accounts open for them from early, in stocks and bonds, as well as insurance is definitely the way to go.
Wow, Trinidad is such a small place, because I do know Quincy. Wow, literally all one degree separation.
That is actually my son's godfather. So
wow,
really good guy,
okay.
Really good guy. Yeah.
Amazing. All right, so we have a couple of minutes left. We're going to go on a quick break, but we want to have a conversation around being financially literate. And what does that mean? Because a lot of times we may be basically incorporating what we know and some things we don't know. So we're going to learn from our fathers on this panel. So we'll be right back. and welcome back to Straight Off the Bat, a show that helps you understand financial literacy and education. Thank you so much for joining us today. If you're doing so from YouTube, don't forget to subscribe to our page to continue seeing content that'll help you manage your money. Today, we're discussing fatherhood and finances, and we are joined by JW, Sunny Bling, and Markeep, which is quite a great panel because we have a combination of the entertainment industry as well as the financial industry. So with Father's Day coming and some macaroni on the way, we want to discuss what it means to be a father and manage finances. So I want to direct this conversation to JW when it relates to what would we have seen in our childhood and may not necessarily want to bring that over to the next generation? Is there something that you would have changed?
I think I've been talking about it for mostly morning in that the transparency, the being open, the learning together. So while I'm learning about certain financial moves, I'm teaching my son. We'll watch certain things on YouTube. I also open an account for him pretty early in the game. As a matter of fact, my sister is the one who went ahead. I brought it up and she did that for his birthday when he's like probably 7 or 8 or something. So he got his own account. He will check his balance. And we will watch stuff on YouTube. We will listen to certain conversations when I'm watching news. And you have the business segment that will come on. We will sit down, we'll take it in. Much to his probably frustration, because I know he wants to watch probably more fun content. But I let him sit there and soak it in, take it in, because I'm also learning, like Sunny would have said earlier. For us, lots of it is still much a work in progress. But because we're in entertainment and there are certain periods within the space where you have peak, so like Carnival, Christmas, Sunny could tell you, those are times where we are in high demand, and your take home at that point would be, let's say, way greater until, let's say, a March or April. You have to find ways now to spread it across and to let your children understand also that certain sacrifices we're making is for the greater, is for the long haul, is for down the road. I know I already talking things like generational wealth with my son. I telling him here what's going on. I put in things in a better place for you, and I want you to take it to the next level for your own children. Now, year 18 is here, and why talking that with him so early for? But I want to already plant that seed into his head that he understands fully well that this foundation I'm setting, you have to take this foundation and build something even greater, and then your children will even build on what you would have put forward for them. So, generational wealth, financial literacy, that's the kind of conversation. And I mean, he's looked like he might be, not so much engaged when we have these kind of discussions, but like our parents would have taught us, Mark, and of course, Kerron Sealy could relate it. Some of the things they would have brought to us that we would have rebelled or be like, oh my gosh, what are you talking this for? And we applying it in our lives as adults now. So it is eventually soaking in on. So I think it's important to just continue the conversations with the children.
Yes, many of us want to roll our eyes when there's discussion about savings, but as you get an adult, it's the same thing like when you say to go to bed early. As a child, that was the most hated instruction, and now I'm like, please, someone send me to my bed.
Yeah.
So
To understand
it
it now
is,
as we get older.
yeah, for sure. Mark, do you have anything to add to that when it comes to the change of parenting? Oh, here we go. You need
My
to
apologies. The biggest catchphrase of since the pandemic. I'm on mute. I think it's also important that you and your significant other, if that is the case, that you guys are in alignment and an agreement with finances and what you teach your kids. You can't. One person has one perspective and has another. Anybody being in a margin rate, that could be difficult in terms of the perspectives, but you have to also have a unified perspective in terms of what you want to teach your kids about financial management. And also, as they get older, I mean, I don't have the 18-year-old yet. Right now we're trying to teach them about saving their allowance. So, what my wife does is she has a board, and if you make up your bed, $5 for the week, you clean your room, you get $10. You're teaching them about earning but it evolves into when they start working. What do they do with their money? Do we have to give them that same great advice? And again, it may fall on deaf ears now, but they're going to remember, when you start working, you see, if you just do, hey, you get our first paycheck and you're like, hey, look at this money. And then you also teach them about taxes. Anytime my son has a burger or something, I take a bite out of it first. And I was like, hey, I'm teaching you about taxes. He will learn that. So you teach them to also not just save now, but as they enter the workplace and they start making money, how do they manage their finances?
Auntie Pauline to the rescue. That taxes thing, I questioning that. You eating your child food. I question.
I tell him all the time, I'm teaching you about taxes.
Shame. Thanks for that. So I want to ask Kerron, because he would have mentioned, having a conversation with your daughter about her pursuit of looking at videography and tapping into, money you had there. But is there anything that you could also add that you've ensured, based on your own financial habits, that you set as a positive example for your children?
As I was saying earlier on, before I got cut off there on the feed, basically it's about keeping it real, just like what Jason said with transparency. And maybe not as transparent. I may not have given a phone so early. My son is 12 and he just got a phone at 12 because he's getting ready for secondary school. And I find now is a good time because he's getting ready for secondary school. But before that, no. But for me, it's really about having the right conversation. And just like Jason said with his son at 18, it's the same conversations I'm having with my daughter now. She opened a bank account. I told her that don't just look at one bank. You need to look at maybe like a couple of them. You're young, open these things as early as humanly possible. The money that you get from me on a monthly basis and the mother and otherwise, find a way of saving. And she's really, really good at saving. As I told her about thinking about multiple streams of income. So as much as you may be studying, and that might take you about 3-4 years, you have some online level of business that she does already. She has her own little online thing that she does. Revisit that. Keep those things going. Don't just stop at that. And then that'll be your schooling that you're doing. You have your online stuff. You're also maybe thinking about doing videography. So those are all streams of income that just bring you more. And the reality is that if you want more in this life, you have to do more. And if you sit and just decide, okay, I just want to be whatever, maybe just one thing, it may not do as much for you as you can if you do more things. And that's what she learns from me, especially as a person that I am. I work with brands, I work with marketing and branding, and then I would host events. I'm also on radio. I never gave up my radio job because it's only 3 hours a day. So I show my children that you like to eat your burgers, you like your fries, you want to be able to go to Lime at Chuck E. Cheese or whatever. These things cost money, and the average family cannot really afford these things as you think. As children, they don't know. So I show them the reality in that. And just like my son is 12, I also employed him and said, the yard is yours under maintenance, right? So I say on a weekly basis, at least 4 times a month, once a week, you need to go on yard duty. Either bathe the dogs, either wipe the windows, either pick up the little 1-2 mangoes that might fall on the ground and rake the yard up. But my point is, at the end of the week, or so I may give you a stipend to suit. I don't even want to call it an allowance, but it's like you're working, you're maintaining the yard, you're the manager of the yard. And it's the same thing with my eldest. So I try to have them thinking along the lines of, you like pretty things. My son loves Lego, no problem. He knows the cost of the Lego. We go to the stores, we look at them, and say, you see the price. But for you to earn that, I need to be able to spend that money. What are we doing? What is the trade? So they have to understand that life isn't free. It's not like give to any and everybody else. And I make sure to show them that the entertainment side of what I do, as Jason would have mentioned, and through the pandemic, is like the beach. I compare it to the beach. We ride a nice big wave. You could work 8 to 4 and sit on the shoreline. Maybe you could start your own business and you might ride a couple of waves in the middle. But the people who they consider superstars by just perception ride big waves. But all of these waves come back to the shoreline. So no matter what you do in your life, whether you ride a big wave, a small wave, or you sit on the shore, we all have to come back to the shore, which means always be prepared for low tide. And that is what the pandemic taught me more so. It was a frustrating time. I also did make it through because I had certain passive things put in place. And as I said, I also write everything down on paper. So even in the pandemic, before the pandemic started in March, I went to the bank, paid off all of my bills. I had my credit card debt. I paid off my credit card debt, and I went only down to what my bare savings was. And I said, no matter how long the pandemic is, I know exactly how much money is afforded to me at this time. And I was able to utilize exactly what I had saved and ride the wave out. I tried different things in between. I don't think you have enough time for that. I opened my little kitchen. I started cooking because I went to culinary school as well. So I opened a kitchen in the community, and I tried a lot of different things, and my children also see that when things get tough gets going, and you need to, use the opportunities around you and keep thinking and trying.
Wow, thanks for that. I like that wave analogy, and I also would like to tell your kids that back in my day, it was nothing was paid for. There was no allowance for cleaning. I will never forget. I grew up in Barbados. My mom would go to the market, and I was there with her, and I knew what was going to happen. She's going to buy 50 fish, and I had to sit down and clean. There was no money for that. So I'd be like, it was very traumatic for me. So I just want the kids out there to know you have it well, guys. You have it well. So when it comes to just quick answers, guys, we have our last question. JW would have mentioned generational wealth. And I want to give the audience, somebody who's watching this now on the replay, a dad, what's one piece of advice you would give for generational wealth? Because the future obviously isn't certain. But at the end of the day, we all, need money to survive. So I want to start with you, Jason. What's the one piece of advice you'd give for generational wealth for dads out there?
I would say to know your history, look at mistakes that would have been made in the past, make adjustments in your own financial experience, and leave a foundation. And not just leave it, but let the child know that this came through sweat, tears, real hard work, and do not squander. Set them in a way so that they could take that particular momentum you would have set to the next level. And for them to understand it, they need to be with you shoulder to shoulder in the trenches, understanding what's happening in real time with the level of accuracy that I would have mentioned during the course of the discussion this morning.
Thanks for that, JW. Kerron, what's your piece of advice?
Shadowing on what Jason would have said, I really think it's about keeping it real with your children and yourself. It's easy for people to see us and perceive that, them as big boys, them fellas have it all together and them rich, when in reality I might be scraping and going by. So I try to teach my children that, of course, not everything that glitters is gold. So don't get caught up in what you see. Try to understand and learn things step by step. And basically, as Jason said, with the transparency, work with your children. So I'm at the stage now where I know mistakes I would have made in past 5 years, 10 years, business-wise and otherwise, that I can now have a young adult that I can guide in the right direction and maybe even help her to help me do better things, all right? And make an investment as a real man going into Father's Day, as a man, fathers, I urge you all, if you bring children into this world, your duty is to provide them with something. Your duty is to provide them with something. And I am proud to say that that is what I'm showing my children. At the end of the day, high or low, your father made sure to invest in some level of insurance that hopefully at the end of the day can fall back on you. We made a property or some kind of investment that falls back on you that you can make sure to make a future investment on. Even as I told my daughter, no matter what happens in this life, even if you start to work tomorrow, I wouldn't tell you, pay for your own education. I am telling you as your father, I am going to pay for your education until you're done. So at the end of the day, the greatest investment your father made, if anything at all, was on your education.
Thank you for that. And we're going to close off with Mark. What's your piece of advice for?
What I would say, I remember a younger person I was mentoring was saying that your generation lives to work, and we work to live. Short-term goals. I want to get a car. I want to go on this trip. I want this expensive pair of sneakers. What I would really try to relate to my kids is it's really about the long game. There are no quick wins in life. You see a lot of things on social media about get rich quick schemes and, invest your money here. Do your research. It's really about a long game. Daddy's here to help you always, guys. And really and truly sound investments, play the long game, have a goal in your mind and work towards it.
Thank you, Mitchell.
I had a really important conversation, guys. I think I just solved world peace, and it just left me. All right. So on that note, Thank you so much to JW, Sunny Bling, and Mark for joining us today and sharing insight into fatherhood and finances. Don't forget to sign up to be notified for our next live show via the links in the comments. They're either there or there or there. As always, be sure to like and follow our page on LinkedIn so you don't miss a single live show. Thanks again for joining us today and happy Father's Day. Bye, everyone.
Yeah.